Hi, you're listening to It Happened to Me, a rare disease and medical challenges podcast. The mission of our podcast is to support you, our listeners, and to create community as you confront the toughest challenges in life. All of us will experience health hardships. The real question is how we adapt. That's the focus of It Happened to Me, which wants to help you overcome limitations and live a full and satisfying life. Drawing on their own health challenges, co-hosts Cathy Gildenhorn and Beth Glassman interview guests who share stories and research to help you succeed in the face of difficult health obstacles. It happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.
Returning to It Happened to Me today is Meredith Mangold. On episode 76, Meredith shared her medical odyssey. It was a journey that included years of chronic pain, medical trauma, and a long road to finding the care that finally helped her reclaim parts of her life.
In this episode, we will talk about an overlooked aspect of people living with chronic pain, which is support systems. The people who walk alongside of us and help us when we are dealing with chronic pain.
Meredith lives with inflammatory bowel disease and complex chronic abdominal and pelvic pain. Her journey has required not just medical care, but emotional, practical, and relational support over many years.
Meredith will share what support has looked like in her own life, what has helped and what hasn't. And she will offer thoughtful guidance for friends, partners, and caregivers who want to help those living with chronic pain. This episode is a follow-up to episode 76, where Meredith shared her journey. I disclosed at that time that I've known Meredith her entire life, and it is a joy and honor to have you back, Meredith. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much for having me back. I'm excited to continue our conversation and talk about such an important topic like support.
We are too. Well, Meredith, let's get into this. In our first episode, as Beth mentioned, we had a wonderful conversation, but we talked a lot about the medical side of your journey. Today, we want to focus on support. And when you think about the hardest years of your illness, living with pain at an 8 out of 10 for years, were there moments when you realized the support was essential to both your survival and your healing?
So many moments, and they continue to unfold today, 15 years later. Obviously, I would say when I was first hospitalized, because I got so sick so fast, there was logistical support, getting to the hospital, physical support, just walking and getting to the bathroom when all my muscles had atrophied, communication, and just advocating for my care with the care team, and then obviously recovering between hospitalizations at home, going to doctors, both getting there because I'm not driving anymore, and to just be there in the room as an advocate, going through, like I talked about last time, all sorts of opiate weans and withdrawals, getting my surgeries. And there are lots of specific moments I can remember, but it continues to unfold every day. And over the past 15 years, there have been so many. I have, I guess, a funny one to share that I don't think I shared last time is, so when I first was in the ICU, I really don't remember anything. So the story was told to me by my mom. And I was in the ICU. The attending had a strong accent, and he asked me, "How's your pain management?" And I said, "I don't know. I haven't written my name in a while." And apparently everyone looked at me like I was crazy. And my mom said, "She thought you said penmanship." Not that I was like, so
That's good.
just little things like that. Something as simple of, like, I speak Meredith and could see what she thought you said. So there are moments of levity like that, but
You got to keep that in your life. You got to keep a smile and a sense of humor in your toolkit.
Exactly. So something as simple as communicating in that moment where I was unable and, wasn't fully lucid to
Right.
communicate how I was feeling. I had my mom there. So lots of moments, but I'm sure we'll get into the
Yeah. Well, who made up your core support system and what did support actually look like for you during those years, both emotionally and practically, or even just being there presence wise, especially on your worst days?
So I've been very fortunate to have a great support system that has, looked different ways over the course of my journey. When I first got sick, it was really my parents. I had an incredible care team at the hospital. My case manager, Marnie, who I was just talking to the other day, my professors, because I was going to school at Georgetown and then was inpatient at Georgetown Hospital, my dean who helped me withdraw from school, and she came so quickly and made sure that everything was good. I knew that I could just focus on my health and that school would be there waiting when I was ready.
How nice.
Yeah, that's
Right.
very important.
And then some of my friends could come across campus and see me. So that was really kind of beginning times. And then my parents, luckily, they're local. I went to school just 20 minutes away from where I grew up. And so my mom was there. She stayed in the hospital with me the whole time. My dad came every day and just went home to take care of our dog in the evening. Uh,
Oh,
and, mom was constantly, Beth, especially the lawyer that she is, was constantly researching and, when something happened, the doctors thought it was one thing. She was in the forums and the comments researching, and we found out that no, actually, this is another thing. And then she'd just something as simple as go and get me better food than hospital food,
it,
especially getting sick with a GI condition. Hospital
mm,
food is not that great. They try. And it also just meant so much to me that she was there because she's always been very dedicated to her work. And just the fact that she took off work for 2 months initially, um, basically almost completely, just meant so much to me. And I know, Beth, you came to see me too. I have to be honest, I don't remember because I was so sick, but thank you so much for it meant so much to me, even though I don't remember. And I know it meant so much to my parents. So thank you for coming. And I had just met my now husband, Ryan, like 2 weeks before I got sick. And so he ultimately became my biggest source of support. And obviously now we're married.
oh,
Yeah.
And so
that's beautiful. That's
It is a
wonderful.
beautiful story. I
it
have
is
to say, you also have parents that not only were physically close in town, they're also very young and healthy, and they were capable of really being there for you in every way, emotionally, physically, psychologically. They're both extraordinary people, I might say,
they
your
are.
parents. So they really were there. And when you say that your mom was there, your mom basically ran her law firm. So taking time off that really impacted an entire law firm.
Mhm.
So she really made a supreme effort to be there for you. And she did everything she could. I know that for a fact. And so that had to have been knowing that someone who is so smart and capable is there on your side because she sure was there.
Exactly.
Sad. So I was going to ask you, what did people do or what maybe did they stop doing specifically that helped you?
I mean, honestly, a lot of it is just being there and
Mhm.
being believed,
Yeah.
not asking me to defend how I feel or saying that it was in my head, like so many, especially women, and then especially women of color experience
Mm.
seeking care. And I mean, just the simplest things like driving me places. My mother in law is now one of the biggest aspects of my support system since she moved here
Oh,
5-ish years ago. She's been driving me to all my appointments, and I usually have like 3 a week, and
oh,
that she's
Oh,
been,
wow.
like, enabling me to continue with things like physical therapy that have just definitely allowed me to improve to the point that I am now. I have all these pictures on my phone of Ryan sitting in chairs in the
Oh,
emergency department or in doctor's appointments. And he just always made me feel so safe and taken care of. And during the pandemic, he couldn't come with me when I was hospitalized once, and that was really scary, and it just made me feel really thankful for the times that he has been there. But luckily at that time I was kind of a hospital pro. It was fine, but still would have been great if he could have been there. So really
Mm.
just listening and believing that that's all we want.
Meredith, it's so interesting because we have had other guests. I can think of a guest in particular who has pancreatic cancer. And she talked about being in the hospital and never being left alone, that family was with her. And this is what you're talking about too, that when and to our listening audience, if you have a loved one in the hospital, people come in and out of the hospital room. And there are times when decisions have to be made, and a patient is not at their best and capable of making decisions. And having an advocate, a family member there with you is not only particularly helpful as far as your care, but a huge relief for the patient who knows that there's no way they can be on top of everything, but it takes away that pressure. So
Right.
when you talk about the importance of just being there, that is no small thing. It's truly very important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, Meredith, that having someone there, a family member, someone close that you can trust and know that they will be your advocate, it is truly a relief for the patient.
Yeah. And just a reminder to patients that if someone comes to support you, but they're not really facilitating things, they're maybe overstepping their bounds and not
Mm.
letting you be autonomous, it is your right to be like, thank you so much. Maybe come back another time. So it's important to have people who are truly supportive and still kind of keep you in the driver's seat and are there to empower and advocate for you.
No, Meredith, I was going to ask that. On the flip side, what would be detrimental? And so, I mean, you've pointed this out and assessing when someone with the best of intentions, we're not saying that someone would come there on purpose, but maybe is not helpful. And that having the wherewithal and the permission to say another time. And
Right.
I think that's well put, Meredith, that you do have to take care of yourself.
Thank
And
And set up boundaries.
yeah.
Did you ever struggle with guilt or fear about being too much for the people supporting you?
all the time.
Oh.
I still do
Mm.
after 15 years. I remember because I had literally just met Ryan, and I remember talking to my case manager, Marnie, who she has MS and she got
Mm,
diagnosed around a similar age. And I remember saying, once I was kind of lucid enough, like, I don't want to be another thing that he has to fix because he's kind of
mm,
been a fixer for most of his life. And already at that point, I knew that because he just showed up in the hospital room and has been there ever since. So I still think about that every day. But once you have that person who you know is going to be there for you and understands that you don't have control over what's happening, then you kind of feel like, okay, I'm not too much or
Right.
mm,
I'm worth it. But it's normal to kind of have that feeling come up.
mhm.
Yeah. Well, chronic pain can be invisible. And how did you communicate your needs to
Mm.
people who couldn't see what you were going through?
Such
And
a good question,
what
Kathy.
does good support
Really.
look like when the pain is chronic and
Yeah.
not going away, but it's invisible?
Yeah.
Right.
Such an important question.
Also, I'm still working on this. Asking
Uh-huh.
for help is something I need to work on. And I feel like getting sick has really pushed me to do that. But still, it's hard every day. You want to be self sufficient and be independent and not have to rely on people. But it is hard. And when it's something you can't see, it's really difficult. It's like when I started using a cane to help me walk because of my pain and my other conditions out in the world, I felt like people finally saw like a manifestation of, oh, okay, like maybe we need to give her, like she's walking slowly. And at first I was really self conscious about it, but then I kind of realized that it was almost like helpful for people to realize, oh, okay, she's dealing with something inside that we can't see. And then in terms of communicating about it to doctors, for example, some
Right.
doctors were just focused on, what's your level of pain, scale of 1 to 10, or just looking at the labs or imaging. And that felt really like reductive and dismissing. Uh, and I feel like it does take someone like Ryan who sees me every day. There are some days I can't move at all, and then there are some days that I can help, with dishes or dinner prep, and that doesn't invalidate my experiences on bad days. And even on days where I am kind of pushing myself to engage, I can be in a lot of pain. And really, like I said before, just being believed and being validated that, even if you look good, you can still be suffering and really.
And people ask you when they see you, how are you doing today? Are you feeling any pain? Or, I mean, is that offensive? Is that helpful and supportive?
It's I feel like people ask that, but there's certain special people who you can be fully honest with
That's
because they get it,
true of anything.
right? And they don't think you're, being like, "Oh, woe is me."
Yeah, you have to still use your noggin and figure out who's right for what. But the
Exactly.
right people can ask you if you're in pain without it being difficult for you. Back to, I think it was Beth that asked the question about, what can people say to you and what do you wish they'd stay away from saying?
Right. And honestly, anyone who inquires about my health and how I'm doing, that means so much because I know that's, they're thinking about me. That's like, even if, I go radio silent for a while because I just don't have the bandwidth to engage in communication, just a simple text from someone saying, hey, I'm thinking of you can make like the biggest difference. And obviously, people who live with chronic illnesses can understand on a deeper level like the kind of epitome of the like level of support that is helpful with chronic pain and chronic illnesses is my friend Sarah, who has RA and some other conditions. She was having a little birthday get together in DC.
For our viewing audience,
Oh,
so RA means rheumatoid arthritis,
arthritis.
just so everybody knows. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Beth. Sometimes I forget when I'm so
Yeah.
much in the healthcare
Yeah.
world. And then something that's really helpful is when other people understand your limitations or really that you just need support and need to do things a little bit differently, maybe. And so, for example, like I usually need somewhere to sit down and I can't walk very long distances. And so, my friend Sarah was having a get together at her apartment in Washington, D.C. I live out in the suburbs, so it was kind of anxiety inducing for me to get out there, but she was texting me beforehand because she gets it. She lives with rheumatoid arthritis and other health conditions. And so she said, okay, I'm making sure that, you have everything you need. I can come pick you up from the metro. My house is this many blocks away, and I want to make sure you have somewhere to sit down. I have this chair and this sofa and my bed. Which one would be best?
Oh,
I
Oh,
said, well,
that
the
is,
couch would
what a
be
wonderful friend. What
yeah,
a wonderful, wonderful
she
friend.
gets it.
amazing.
She
Yeah.
gets it.
Yeah. And just to be seen like that and not to
Mhm.
feel like I'm a burden, but her actively, making it a safe space for me and recognizing that she still wants me there, but that I just need a little extra support just means the world.
Well, that is really beautifully said. I know that I'll share that I have visual disabilities, and now girlfriends, if I meet them for lunch, they'll say, Beth, will meet you outside so that I have someone to walk into the restaurant with. And so I know exactly what you mean, Meredith. And, people are only too willing to do that, and really it's incumbent upon us to say, I'm sort of feeling a little nervous about this get together. Can you do X? So that we need to help people understand what would make us feel better. But having a friend pave the way as she did, what a special person. And of course, she gets it because she has her own issues.
Right. And
Um,
yeah.
it's hard, Meredith, because I think for the outside world, for anyone who's listening to this and not seeing us, Meredith is a gorgeous young woman. You can't imagine that there would be any issue in the world she would have because she's just drop dead gorgeous. So it's, I think for the outside world, when Cathy talked about an invisible problem, it truly is invisible that no one would understand. So Meredith, over the years, your condition has changed. So the excruciating pain has gone to something not away, but more manageable. So how does that change your support system? What have you found as have they adapted to this new circumstance?
Yeah, and that's something that I remember all the kind of mental health practitioners that I've seen have kind of said that that's a really significant thing when relationship dynamics and the kind of support you need change, and how that can, be potentially disruptive and just confusing for relationship dynamics. But things can fluctuate so much, especially with chronic
Mhm.
illnesses, that like I said, one day I can be helping Brian, the other day I am laid out in bed with a migraine for 5 days like I was last week.
I'm sorry, Meredith.
Yeah. It's chronic life. It's not fun, but I'm used to it at this point. Now that, I don't need someone like carrying me into the emergency department or really, you know, physically helping me in a really acute situation. It's really the emotional support and understanding that is really helpful, and just, understanding that I'm not being lazy, um,
Mhm.
and that I'm constantly navigating healthcare things. Like, I was on the phone with insurance in my doctor's office for probably cumulatively 3 hours yesterday. And
Yeah.
that's something that, I might not be going out to the office, but I am managing my health as a full-time job. And so a lot of times now I'm capable of handling that depending on the day. But it's really the emotional support of, hey, I know that is really frustrating. And I'm sorry that you can't get your medications, or, you had to cancel this procedure, which just happened last week. So it's really that emotional support that has been most helpful now. And yeah, it can change day to day.
Well, this is something our healthcare system, something that all of us have to navigate. And when you're not feeling well, the burden is so difficult. This discussion, I just had a friend talk about trying to get medication, trying to get something approved. It is wearing, having to cancel a procedure, Meredith. I'm so sorry to hear that. All of this zaps your strength. And when your strength is not what it you would want it to be, it really cuts into what you can do. And I think, I'm wondering, how do you explain that? The emotional toll of dealing with chronic illness.
It's different for everyone, but honestly, it's devastating. It's all
Mhm.
consuming. It's exhausting. Like you said,
Mhm.
I kind of break things down into what my physical and I really like the word bandwidth
Mm.
because that isn't really judgmental.
Mhm.
It's like a neutral world word. Some days I'll have X amount of emotional bandwidth or cognitive bandwidth or physical bandwidth. And so the support I need those days can look different based on what my bandwidth is. A lot of times you can feel like your life has been stolen from you, and you feel just so lonely in your pain and your chronic illness because no one else can, except for maybe others living with, similar conditions, really understands what it feels like physically, emotionally, all those things. And honestly, thankfully, now these days are way fewer and almost to zero,
Mm.
but there were so many
Wow.
days where I didn't wanna wake up the next morning just because I was in so much pain, and I have so many friends who deal with suicidal ideation because of their symptoms, but also the mental health aspect of dealing with that, and a lot of it, a big part of why they're suffering so much is the care navigation aspect, is they're just
Mm.
fighting and fighting every day, and it's exhausting. So it's a burden, and it takes very special people to be able to support you in the way that is truly meaningful, but also in terms of kind of how you exist in the world. We have to mask a lot if you're in pain or, again, with like invisible illnesses. I have to go out and do social things sometimes, and I am in so much pain. Then maybe I'm seen as a party pooper or something. And except, if I'm around people who really get it and I can just be my authentic self. But we're so used to having to mask out in public and, just kind of make it seem like we're okay. But you never know what someone is carrying inside of them.
Very true. Very true. Do you feel that after you've done that public exercise, do you feel better about yourself that you were able to do it? Do you find it rewarding?
Recently, I was
Uh-huh.
really anxious about an outing, and
Uh-huh.
because of both this and then social bandwidth is another one. So I'm dealing, physically with pain.
Mhm.
Socially,
Yes.
it's hard sometimes to interact because of my cognitive bandwidth and brain fog. But luckily, I got talking to someone there and it was really like natural and fluid. And so
Oh,
afterwards, I felt I was in so much pain and I had to go recover at home. But
right.
I felt proud of myself and happy that I
Yes.
actually had a good conversation with some people. So
Oh.
it's
I was wondering how much of you is hard on yourself and how much can pat yourself on the back and say,
Mhm.
you're doing an amazing job getting by with
Right.
the cards you have been dealt.
Yeah.
And, how much of you can really appreciate how you're approaching it?
I feel like thankfully things have shifted over my journey. In the beginning, it was a lot more like I was still used to how I could function before, and I
Mhm.
felt like I was failing in some way. But as I've continued to live this journey and meet with other people who have chronic conditions, I was just talking to someone about this yesterday about how we always talk about having kind of grace and compassion for ourselves because it can be really hard when you see other people out living their life. Or I started my business 2 years ago and I look at other people who have their businesses and, they're doing awesome and doing all these things and going to conferences. And I think, like, oh no, like, this is so frustrating. And then I realize I have a full time job navigating my care. I have medical
Mhm.
appointments every morning.
Just that you have a business is extraordinary.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm a lot kinder on myself now. Peers who remind me that that is important.
That your husband every now and then?
I
He's
would say,
so
that
supportive.
number one relationship is very enviable, Meredith. What we
Absolutely.
wouldn't all give to have
That
have
husband,
Ryan. We just want to
yes,
clone Ryan,
absolutely.
and you found him, Meredith, and
I
he found you, and
And it's
that is a
beautiful that,
beautiful. It really is.
yeah, you're together. I love it.
It
Yeah.
But
really is.
what
So
advice would you give to partners, to family members or friends who want to help and want to support you, but they don't know how. They don't know how to approach someone with chronic pain. And how can supporters care deeply without trying to fix things or rush someone's healing? How can they be respectful of who you are?
that's a really good question because the sense of you being a problem to fix can both be felt by us and right, no one you're not taught how to support someone in that situation. And you have to just not be scared to ask. You know, ask them, say, "Hey, how are you really feeling today?" That's also something
Mhm.
I always say is, "How are you feeling today? Really?" Because so many of
Mhm.
us are just like, "Oh, I'm fine."
Yep. Yep.
I want to really know. So, but
Mhm.
sometimes if you ask someone living with a chronic condition, "What can I do to support you?" Sometimes they're just so overwhelmed that they don't know. So
Mhm.
sometimes it's helpful to like give them options. Like, okay, do you want me to just sit with you and be with you? Or is there something that I can do like physically? Like, can I go get you groceries? Or do you want to talk about something? So sometimes it's helpful to, ask specifically how they want to be supported. Um, and don't stop inviting people to things. Because a lot of
Mm.
times I think people are like, "Oh, I don't wanna bother them. They're probably, not
Mm.
feeling well." But
Right.
a lot of times our friends drift away because
Right.
Oh,
they don't want to engage in that
right.
because they don't know how to. Try not to make them feel bad about canceling plans because we don't want to, but
Mhm.
things happen, our pain flares and you've been looking forward to going to this thing for weeks and then your body decides nope. So
We're not going. Yeah.
understanding is so helpful and meaningful.
And-
I actually asked Ryan about this last night.
Right.
I didn't remember until like 11 o'clock and he was going to bed. And I went upstairs and I was like, hey, what would you say to partners or loved ones of someone living with chronic illness? And he said, you're springing like this really deep question on me, right? What I'm going to you out. But he laughs about it because I sometimes do that a lot. And because I usually get like a second, third wind in the evening. He said that it's normal for loved ones to feel like a deep frustration of feeling
Mm,
powerless and not being able to do something to help or fix the situation, that you're like outside on the outside and desperately want to help them feel better, but
mm,
you can only do so much.
Right.
mhm,
And sometimes you can feel guilty about your meaning the loved one about feeling like you have your own needs that you want met, but basically, it's just he said it's important to keep communicating and then finding things that you love about that person. And so just remembering that this situation, difficult health situation, everything they're going through is not everything that is that person that's dealing
Hmm.
with it. There are things that you love about them and then leaning into little victories is so important. So basically, he was recognizing that it's hard to be on the outside and not to be able to fix things, but also that's not really their job. It's
Right.
just to be there for you and ask how they
mhm.
can be most supportive. But I am so thankful that
So well, for people listening who are the
Yeah.
ones living with chronic illness and chronic pain, how can they advocate for the kind of support they need without
Mhm.
burning out or feeling ashamed? Or really, just how can they advocate?
it's a that's a really good question because constantly advocating for yourself can be exhausting. Just navigating our healthcare system, so many of us take what I call little hiatuses. You're like fighting for your care, really advocating for yourself, and then you're just like, I need a break. And you kind of just let things go. And then when you're ready and have that bandwidth back, you re-engage. And so that really is a good question. I think the best way that you can advocate for yourself is really focusing on the mental health aspect. I just started therapy again after like 8 years of not seeing anyone because honestly, I didn't connect with anyone that I had talked to before, and she is incredible.
Oh,
Oh,
good. Yay. Oh,
Takes
that's
looking.
wonderful.
I know, I'm so excited.
oh,
But
Congratulations.
thank
yeah.
you. All my chronic illness friends and I like are get so excited about like, did you have a good therapy session? Like, yes, my
Oh,
therapist was excited about this. I'm like, yes, I'm excited about that. Way to go. Like you could reach out to advocacy organizations too, support groups now online. There are a lot of online communities. And then we'll, I think, put some resources in the show notes. And then dealing with providers and advocating for yourself in that space, don't settle.
mm,
Educate yourself, especially now with AI and all the resources out there. You can really learn a lot about your condition and what your options are. And if your healthcare provider is not receptive to you being an active participant in your care, thank you next. Get a
Right.
second,
And
third,
maybe
fourth
they're
mhm.
not
opinion.
meant to be on your
That's right.
team.
Exactly,
That's
and it's
Yeah.
right.
taken me 15 years to find that right team, so it is
Uh-huh.
exhausting, but keep at it. You have to be the CEO of your own health. I treat every appointment, I think maybe like I said last time, like a business meeting, and truly that is exhausting sometimes, but if you kind of stay on top of that, it can be much more there's momentum, and so it's not as burdensome to feel like you're constantly like fighting for the care you need. If you lay like good firm groundwork, then things are going to be much easier and you're going to be taken seriously. And then in terms of talking with your loved ones, just keep that open communication. Like I said, I'm still working on this myself, but Ryan knows me so well now that he just knows usually what I need. It's hard for me to ask, but on days when I feel like this, or on days I need to do this, but I can't. It would be incredibly helpful if you could help me with this, or just be really honest and open about the kind of support you need.
Mm.
Um, and, if they're meant to be in your life, they're going to understand and be receptive to that. It is really unfortunate when people don't feel that supported. I was helping to build an app for patients living with inflammatory bowel disease. And I remember we had a woman message in saying, "My husband just thinks I'm lazy. I don't know how
Oh,
to communicate with him." And so, through resources that we had from another patient writing about her own story, we were able to give her that and said, "I'm so sorry you're going through this, but this is how, our ambassador Amanda has dealt with talking with her loved ones."
mm,
And she
mm.
said, "Thank you so much. I'm going to go talk to him." So sometimes it just, takes learning from other people, and communicate is really important.
Well, that's very
Wonderful.
important. I was thinking that maybe having your loved one go with you to your doctor's appointments might help
Mhm.
crystallize the issue for them
And something where they understand a little
so
more
they
about
could
what's going on.
understand, yes, that they
Yeah.
could understand. Sometimes just expressing yourself is difficult. Being your best advocate is not always so easy. It
Right.
does take some personal reflection in order
Right.
to master that skill, and it takes time to really articulate what it is because you're not exactly sure what you need. And then, of course, your loved ones, as much as they want to help you, really can't stand in your shoes. They don't
Mhm.
really have an understanding. And quite frankly, neither do your doctors.
Right.
You know your
You
body.
know, I have a friend, frankly, who just had, because of macular degeneration, was going to get a shot in her eye. And the doctor told her she could drive home because she had the other eye. And she called me and I said, "How are you going to concentrate on the road? You're going to be thinking about the shot in that eye." And I said, "And by the way, that doctor has never had a shot in any eye. Get someone to
Please.
go with you." I think that, even our caregivers don't really understand how we live our lives. And so it's really up to us as the ones living with an issue to express ourselves as well as we can. And Meredith, you have achieved that in spades. You have learned how to be articulate in a way that someone around you can understand and is actionable.
Right.
You've given actionable advice, which is what the caregiver wants, the loved
Right.
one wants. They want to know how to help you, and you've done that. And so,
Some days I'm better at it than others.
yes, well,
It's
we're
hard.
human. We are
And I think
human.
and I
Yes,
think the support system around anyone needs
yes,
to also listen to the pointers that have been
yes,
in this conversation and realize sometimes fixing it, so to speak, is doing nothing at all, just being there and
just
just
listen.
listening.
That's right.
And that's enough to help someone with what they need. And fixing it isn't always what, we've been trained to think that means doing an activist action that
Right.
will change things. Sometimes it's not changing things physically, it's changing the way things are, kind of the energy around the conversation.
Exactly. It's
Mhm,
like a lot of the
mhm,
times, people living with chronic conditions can feel like this is just fully their burden to bear, and they
mhm,
don't want to burden anyone else. And it's a
mhm,
lot to just hold inside yourself. And so just being
mhm.
able to share it and say, "I don't need you to do anything,
Just
but
listen.
just listen," that just frees up so much. You're not carrying that burden alone. So just being there can mean,
And that, so to speak, fixes your needs for the moment.
right.
And
Mm,
that's so much of what people have to start thinking differently
mm,
in a situation of chronic illness and chronic pain, that it's not how we're raised to normally think. And that's why I think it must be so hard for your support system, not you personally, but as a patient, with chronic pain or chronic illness, for the support system to really understand that sometimes the greatest gift you can give or the greatest thing you can do is by doing nothing.
Just be there.
Just being there.
Be there.
Just your
being
presence.
there.
And that's a hard concept. And I'm so glad we spoke of that
Yeah.
today. I can't thank you enough for educating us and teaching our listening audience how I hate to say simple, but how sometimes how basic the needs are, and to realize it's not always something more complicated than being there.
As we wrap up, is there a final message that you would like to share with those who are dealing with chronic pain or those who love someone who has chronic pain?
That's a big question, but I think that it's okay to feel your feelings on both sides. We're all human. So you can feel, you know, frustration, resentment, confusion, guilt, grief. It doesn't make you a bad person. We all have our own experiences, but it's how you move forward and act on that really makes the difference. Don't assume what someone else is feeling or going through. Keep that communication going. And for those of us living with chronic conditions who often feel a lot of guilt or that there's imbalance in our relationships, I would say it's really important to ask your loved ones how you can support them and make them feel loved and appreciated, even on days where you have like really low bandwidth. So, I've asked Ryan that and he said, honestly, just when you make me tea, it makes me feel loved. He's doing, all of these other things, but I know that I can show him my love if I just make him some tea. And that makes me feel good that I am actively contributing to our relationship and making
And
him
his
realize how much I
happiness.
support.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So just, yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Meredith,
What an important conversation. Thank you.
It really has been, Meredith. And I want to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be with you, not just once, but twice. To our listening audience, you can see why we are just in awe of Meredith, this woman who is just so poised and intellectually and has articulated a difficult topic in such a meaningful way. This has really been a wonderful episode, Meredith, and I thank you for your honesty in opening up to us. I know that our listening audience has learned so much, as Cathy and I have, in spending time with you. It's really an honor, Meredith. And as always, this bright, beautiful, capable young woman. I just am so proud of you, Meredith.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you, Meredith.
Thank you, Beth and Cathy. Thank you for, having this opportunity for us to share our stories. And it's just so important. And thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of It Happened to Me. We encourage you to learn more at ithappenedtomepod.com. Please use the contact form on our website to submit your guest suggestions, comments, questions, ideas, and feedback for the show. You can also email us directly at ithappenedtomepod@gmail.com. We would really appreciate it if you can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app like Apple or Spotify. This helps others in the rare disease and medical challenge community find us. It Happened to Me is created and hosted by Cathy Gillenhorn and Beth Glassman. I'm Keir Deneen from DNA Today, and I serve as our executive producer and marketing lead. Amanda Andrioli is our associate producer. Ashlyn Anokian is our graphic designer. And remember, it happened to me. I'm not alone, and neither are you.